I'm certainly not okay with slavery, but the Founding Fathers made a compromise to achieve something great.
Let's move on to this Leo and whatever thing. Frederick Douglass.
That's right, Bob. Despite some violence and destruction by some of our angrier activists, we're seeing mostly peaceful protests.
Protesters are demanding that the police be abolished.
Well, Clint, these local activists want to abolish the police. They're claiming systematic oppression and want the U.S. system torn down.
What is going on? Things are so weird right now.
I love that that's all of the examples of protest showed to them. That's all of them. That's all of them. Even though, like, again, 92% of protests are peaceful. And activists have a wide range of opinions on, like, what to do to go forward to address inequality. They're just all rioters and fucking, they all just want to abolish the cops. Okay, great. Wonderful. This is shown to children. Totally not propaganda. Okay.
I know. Mrs. Calder gave us an assignment today about being activists for justice.
Isn't Mrs. Calder your math teacher?
Yeah. We learn math, but we spend a lot of time learning about the stuff they talk about in the—
Can I just say, this idea that like in math classes or like in classes not about like this stuff, you learn about this, like, it's absolutely preposterous, okay? I can think of like once in class we sat down and had a conversation about race, and it was during the time where we were reading Huckleberry Finn, which I think was appropriate considering the content that was going on. Like where they do talk about race, it's usually in classes where it's the most appropriate to actually have that conversation. It's not usually math teachers. It does happen, but most of the time that's not what's going on. It's like in extreme weird cases.
The news.
Not to mention, like, I'm not gonna just trust some random math teacher to be able to have a responsible conversation about race.
That's weird. Isn't math class supposed to be for math?
Why is everyone so angry? Are they burning a car? What does abolish even mean?
That's enough. Let's get to the bottom of this.
The app?
You got it. Abolitionist? Let's check this out. Hi, are you an abolitionist?
I am. My name is Frederick Douglass. Welcome to 1852.
Thanks. I recognize you from a picture in my U.S. history textbook. You have really cool hair. I'm Layla.
Okay, so there's a few things that got me there. The first thing was the voice they gave Frederick Douglass. I don't know if he directly crawled out of the pits of hell, right? But somebody just called it audio blackface. I don't know. I just don't know why his voice is so deep. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, the first thing she says is about the hair. This is how you know that the person who wrote this skit was 100% white, okay? You're writing a story about the problem of racism in modern America, and the first thing you have the child say to the person is, "Hello, black man, nice hair." Okay, good idea, brilliant.
That's my brother, Leo.
We're trying to learn about activism.
The very first thing. Oh, God.
And abolishing things. Can you help us?
Well, not to brag, but I'm the perfect guy for you to talk to. I'm the most famous activist in America, and I'm currently working on getting something abolished.
Abolish means to end, right? What are you wanting to get rid of?
I want slavery to end. At this time that you have come to visit, for half of the United States, it is okay for some people to own other people, make them work for many hours for no pay, and force them to do anything, anytime.
That's so unfair.
Out of nowhere, Frederick Douglass is like, it's much like modern American vaccine mandates. Like,
Fair and horrible.
You're right. The sad fact is slavery has existed everywhere in the world for thousands of years. But it's especially disappointing here because America was founded on the idea of freedom. Yet so many black people are not free.
Are you a slave, Mr. Douglass?
I was, but not anymore. I was born a slave, and I was taken from my family at the age of 6.
That's just so terrible. How did you deal with that?
It was very hard, and I was often sad. But I taught myself to read and write, and like I always say, knowledge is the pathway from slavery to freedom. As a boy, I was regularly beaten. But when I was 21, I had had enough and escaped to the North, where slavery is against the law, and have never looked back. Today, I am a free American, fighting for all to be free.
How can there be slavery in America when the founding fathers said that all men are created equal?
Whoa, Layla, they also owned slaves and were massive hypocrites. But
Yeah, and I've heard that some of those founding fathers owned slaves.
hey, there you go, Leo. Get them all tough cocktail.
What about that?
Children, our founding fathers knew that slavery was evil and wrong. And they knew
And that's why they did it.
that it would do terrible harm to the nation. They wanted it to end, but their first priority was
Wait,
getting...
wait. But back the fuck up. Back the fuck up. Okay. Number one, it depends on the founding father. There were founding fathers that were abolitionists. There were also founding fathers that believed that slavery was a necessary evil to like win against the and then there were founding fathers who owned slaves. You can't be like, man, this practice is so terrible. Yes, I'd like to buy 20. Like then you're just a hypocrite, okay? What do you mean?
all 13 colonies to unite as one country. Southern colonies were dependent on slave labor, and they wouldn't have joined a union that had banned it.
Are you okay with that?
I'm certainly not okay with slavery, but the Founding Fathers made a compromise to achieve something great.
Really? Really? That's what he would have said? No, he would have said no. He was beaten. Slavery was the beating and raping and theft of labor for black people for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years in the Americas. And he was like, well, and just like fucking being actively whipped, and he's just on the whipping post, like, this is pretty bad, but at least like the American presidents understood the principle of compromise. No, man, he would have said no.
Making of the United States. If they immediately outlawed slavery after winning independence, the southern colonies would have formed their own slave-owning country. Our founders created a system they thought would have slavery end gradually.
Okay, so basically, what this is they got Frederick Douglass to act as a puppet, right? After having like the little kids be like, oh, nice hair, right? And then after getting Frederick Douglass to act like a puppet, he's just like, well, I mean, slavery is bad, as we all know. But on the other hand, it was a necessary evil. Da-da-da-da. Instead of just like an easy thing would have been like, were you okay with that? No, then move on. But okay, sure, why not?
Well, we're here in 1852, and America's been around for about 75 years. You're still trying to get slavery abolished. It doesn't sound like the system the Founding Fathers set up is working.
On the contrary, all the northern states outlawed slavery by 1804, and buying slaves from Africa was outlawed for the whole country 4 years later.
What's taking the southern states so long to do what's right?
Great streams are not easily turned from channels worn deep in the course of ages.
Huh?
What I mean is, sometimes things are more complicated than they might seem, and complicated problems take time to solve.
When I have
Really, that's the explanation they gave to why the South still had slavery. They didn't talk about like the economy based on planting, nothing, just, well, it's complicated, and then just move on. So they can give like a long like essay, like he's talking mega fast, like trying to explain away the Founding Fathers like having slaves. But then they ask, well, why does the South still have slaves? Oh, don't worry about it. Okay.
a complicated math problem, if I rush to solve it, I make mistakes.
Leo, ending slavery is such a bigger deal than your math problems.
It certainly is, Layla. Along with
Okay,
independence...
she lost a point for the hair comment. Now she's gained it back out of the negative for saying slavery is worse than math homework.
and democracy, it's probably America's biggest deal. There was no real movement anywhere in the world to abolish slavery before the American founding. Slavery was part of life all over the world. It was America.
Really? There was no... One second. Which country abolished slavery first? Oh. Yeah, I don't know why this was a big surprise to me. Haiti. Why didn't I think of that? How the fuck did I not think of Haiti? Like, Haiti did it themselves. They were like, oh yeah, wait, we outnumber you. Bam. Like, and oh, well, maybe there's a certain, like, way when we think of Haiti in particular on how, you know, slavery ended in Haiti. That means it's not something that would need to particularly be highlighted. But Frederick Douglass, like, himself actually, I think, like, mentioned Haiti before. Like, he actually was, like, he would, like, literally point to Haiti and talk about it. It's not, like, something he wouldn't have known. But okay.
That began the conversation to end it. But Leo is correct that
Didn't Haiti pay a big price for it? Well, yes. After that, they, like, paid France, like, a bunch of money because they didn't want to, like, fight a war over it.
problems need to be approached very carefully. Have you kids heard of William Lloyd Garrison?
No.
Nope.
He's an abolitionist like me, and he and I used to be friends, but we aren't any longer. We don't agree how to solve problems. William refuses all compromises, demands immediate change, and if he doesn't get what he wants, he likes to set things on fire.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds
Oh
like
my
you know the type.
god.
Yeah, we've got that type in our time.
So, you're trying to work for change.
Oh my god. Can I... One second. Frederick Douglass. Can we actually... Can we actually just read, like, John Brown's speech? I mean, Frederick Douglass's speech on John Brown. I think if there's anything, any like words to, like, describe what Frederick Douglass thought of particularly, like, the John Brown type. And for those who don't know who John Brown is, John Brown was somebody who led a rebellion against slavery. So literally, not rioting, literally, we're gonna go kill people who have people in chains. So a little bit further than William Lloyd Garrison, okay? Let's see. Let me see. Gave a lecture on the man. One second. Let's see if I can find his works. It was planted with the first cargo of slaves, landed at Jamestown, Virginia, and ripened by the heat and moisture of more than 200 years of cruel slavery. It was but the echo of alarm and terror of peaceful villages in Africa, startled from their slumbers at midnight, 100 years before, by rapacious traders to supply the markets of this Christian country with slaves. In 3 parishes at Harper's Ferry for liberty, millions have been murdered on the land and sea by the accursed traffic in human souls. One second. Douglass described Brown's modest living circumstances, his devotion to his wife, children, and the destruction of slavery. He compares him favorably to Patrick Henry. He, of the "Give me liberty and give me death" speech, Henry loved liberty for the rich and the great. Brown loved liberty for the poor and the weak. Now, after more than an hour, the speech runs 35 typewritten pages. He builds to his dazzling finale. Brown became a majestic, terrible figure astride the American landscape. The last lines. But when John Brown stretched forth his arm, the sky was cleared. There was an end to the argument. The time for compromise was gone. And to the armed hosts of freedom, standing above the chasm of a broken union, was the decision of the sword. The South at once staked all upon getting possession of the federal government, and failing in that, she drew the sword of rebellion, and thus made her own, and not John Brown's, the lost cause. So, to just simply be like, oh, me and, like, them, since they were uncompromising, we grew afar, we grew different. Well, of course, like, Frederick Douglass, like, had different strategies than different people. Like, Frederick Douglass, if you got him in a moment of honesty about John Brown, was not like, oh, he's just some silly rabble-rouser going around rebelling due to slavery. I mean, listen to the language he uses there, the trafficking of human souls, right? And then going into this description of John Brown post his rebellion into and after the Civil War in a majestic light, in a positive light of John Brown, somebody who went much further than the person they describe here. So I don't know, man. I think the description of like, well, I just don't like how they were uncompromising and we grew apart and we're no longer friends. I don't know, man. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, but okay.
Inside of the American system.
Precisely, Layla. Our system is wonderful, and the Constitution is a glorious liberty document.
Listen to the vid. It's 2 minutes from Frederick Douglass' autobiography. He literally says that there needed to be violence to end slavery. Oh, snap. Don't be fooled. It's not as actual. Okay, to be fair, someone said, here's audio of him, and I was surprised, okay? Don't keep clowning on me by this. And I was surprised because I actually was like, when did we, have the first, voice recording equipment? And I actually checked before stream because I knew I was going to cover this. That's why I was surprised.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so I think they're giving a little bit of a reductionist view of Frederick Douglass. Slightly.
We just need to convince enough Americans to be true to it.
Oh my god. We just listened to Frederick Douglass himself saying we can't just morally persuade people to be against slavery. And the first thing we hear when we get back to the video.
Liberty document. We just need to convince enough Americans to be true to it.
Okay, sure, buddy.
And people like Garrison don't just want slavery abolished, but the whole American system?
You are correct.
What?
His approach is called radical. That means a complete fundamental change of everything.
That's
What? That's not what radical mean. What the fuck are you Frederick! This fucking weird. What'd you do with the real Frederick Douglass? He's murdered in that tree. He's in that tree right now, or they stuffed him in the fucking bushes and got this imposter out here. What does that mean? Frederick Douglass himself was considered a radical. Oh, Jesus Christ.
seems silly.
Every single time when I go to my university campus, I pass a statue of Frederick Douglass. And I feel like tomorrow I'm going to pass it. It's going to be weeping, okay? Because it's going to see on my face that I saw the video.
There are so many amazing things about America.
Well, your way is definitely better. It's the right way to get change.
I think so. But how are you so sure?
Spoiler alert, in our time, you're considered an American hero, and that other guy isn't really known.
And double spoiler alert,
Wait, what do you mean? Who cares if the other guy isn't famous? What the?
So in our time, all Americans are equally protected under the law and have equal
Oh, that's a very, yeah, I gotta be very specific there. Under the law.
voting rights, regardless of race.
Does America have the same constitution in your time as the one here in 1852?
Yeah, I'm sure that's the only one that they, yeah, sure.
We
No,
sure do.
no, they don't.
Same.
No, they literally didn't. There was constitutional amendments. There was some time when we took this left turn off the road and we decided to ban liquor, and now you're fist bumping them. What the
One,
fuck is?
with
Oh
some
my
changes
God.
called amendments.
I knew the U.S. Constitution would survive and allow for positive change.
We even had a black president.
2 terms.
So, Mr.
Wait, how you gonna like champion that when I know Prager like voted against him both times?
Douglas, do you think we should be activists, just not radical ones?
Layla, you're America where
Is that really the conclusion they're coming with from this? That Frederick Douglass would be like, we need to be activists, but not radical ones. When he's like saying like John Brown convinced him that you needed violence to end slavery.
people are free and everyone is equal under the law sounds
He
pretty
was
great.
considered a
But no place is
radical!
perfect. So it's good to listen to activists who want to improve things. But they have to be willing to work inside our system. And they have to understand that change usually requires patience and compromise. Then you might want to join their cause. But if they are radicals like Garrison, you and your brother will be best served to stay away.
I think I'm just gonna worry about surviving middle school for now.
That sounds wonderful. And you, Leo?
I'm just gonna worry about being a kid.
Okay. Well, wonderful. This is like, say, MLK just wanted to pass a bill to end slavery. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. End discrimination. Fucking.